Today we are going to cover Indian clubs. This is one of my favorite tools for just having a fun workout, but more importantly, because they actually stimulate your brain differently. There's a lot of cool patterns that you can do with Indian clubs, and we're going to cover quite a few of them today. So that said, let's go over the basics, get you started, and then from there, you dig right in and have some fun yourself. So, first thing we want to talk about is the anatomy of the club. This is called the muzzle. This is called the handle. Surprise, surprise, you put your hand on the handle. However, there is a unique grip that you need to use in order to make sure that you're actually not getting too much tension in the wrist and you have the flexibility to move the Indian club the way you need to. So, what I want you to think of is that the ring finger is going to go around the bottom here. Pinky's going to kind of loosely be around the ball. And these two fingers here, your index and your middle finger, they're going to lightly hold this. As this was taught to me, and I think is a good analogy, imagine you're holding an ice cream cone. You're going to have a tighter grip at the bottom and a looser grip up top. Okay? So that ring finger is really what's going to hold that in place. The other fingers are going to be fairly loose. So even though I'm going to have my thumb in there, there's going to be some play in there, because when we start doing some of these patterns, I want that club to be able to move freely, okay? And so if I have too tight of a grip, then what happens is I can't actually let the weight of the club go, and I have to try and muscle through this. One of the things that I really enjoy about Indian clubs is the fact that the feel of the inertia of the weight of the club is actually what you're trying to feel, okay? You want the weight that is distributed towards the end of the club, towards the muzzle, to almost pull the arm into the different patterns. You want to feel the weight pull the arm through, and you're just kind of redirecting that and then generating new tension. So for example, as I get here and I let it fall, I'm then redirecting it up. But I'm letting the weight of the club kind of dictate the speed. So I'm letting it fall, boom. Letting it fall, boom. And when I go the other way, boom. I'm just letting it fall, and then I'm just kind of steering and redirecting. So the inertia, the weight that the club has concentrated towards the end, pulls the arm. And then the muscular involvement is really just about steering which way you want to create the pattern. But in order to do that, you've got to have the right grip. So I don't want too tight of a grip. Okay, so now that we got grip covered, let's talk about pattern one, which is kind of the one you just saw. We're going to break that down step by step. So I have forward and reverse of this, but when I bring this club up, notice I'm bringing that elbow across. I'm going to let that club fall over my shoulder. Now notice my elbow is across. Okay, I'm keeping my elbow here. My elbow is not out here to the side. My elbow is across. So as my elbow is across, then I pass the arm behind me, and then I almost cast that club bell out, or Indian club out, as if I'm pulling a sword or an arrow out of the sheath on my back. Then I let it come down. Now when I let it come down, I'm internally rotating and pointing my bicep towards the ground. Then, when I come right back up, I don't have any strain on that shoulder when I create that next rotation. So what this looks like in motion, and I'm slowing this down so you can see the pattern, and cast it out, rotate down, let it fall, then the elbow comes up, pull that elbow to the side, pull out the sword, point that down, come up, and then I'm going to speed that up, and I'm going to let the momentum create that feeling. And that is pattern number one. And then we're going to reverse pattern number one. And it is the same exact thing, except backwards. So I'm going to come down with the arm. And again, in this case, I'm actually going to rotate that bicep up. So I'm prepared to put that sword back in the sheath, and then I bring the club around. So I come out, bicep up, let that club go back behind my head, elbow comes down and across, so I'm trying to cross my midline with that elbow, and then I cast the club out and bring it up. So now I'm going to speed all that up again. From a neurological standpoint, this is what is considered a complex movement. Okay? Complex, nonlinear movement. This requires a lot of cerebellum activation, a lot of accuracy in my movement, which means my brain has to pay more attention. So when that happens, and I can switch directions, my brain is going to have a lot more overall stimulation, and there's a lot more learning involved as far as how do I time this? How do I get new sensation of that inertia and the weight of the club? How do I actually create just enough tension, but also an excellent balance of relaxation with that tension? So there's a lot that goes into these patterns, okay? That's the most common pattern that you're going to see. Now you may also see that with two clubs at the same time, in which case you're going to have the same pattern occurring on both sides of the body. And when that happens, now I have bilateral coordination. And I can go the opposite way as well. Occasionally they will touch, and that's okay. And occasionally you'll clip your head, and that's okay. It's very self-correcting when that happens. You can also start to see different patterns where one side is doing one pattern at a different point than the other. So now they're doing the same pattern, but they're each at a different phase. And then I can reverse that. Okay? I can also have them essentially doing the same direction, but they're actually technically in opposite patterns. Okay? Notice the club on my right is putting the sword away, and the club on my left is pulling the sword out. And then I can switch directions. I can go the opposite way. And that is your basic pattern. Now, you can get a little bit more advanced with this too. Okay? I would say own those, practice the 3 different variations where they're doing the same motion, they're doing opposite points in the motion, and then they're also going the same direction. Practice those, practice switching between those. You'll have a really good level of motor competency for the upper body. There's a lot of coordination involved, so I need you to own that in order to be able to do all the stuff I'm about to show you. Now, let's get into the cool stuff. When it comes to the weight of the club, okay, this is a 2-pound club here. 1-pound clubs are available. Oftentimes you'll buy these in kits that have a 1 pound and a 2 pound, or a pair of 1 pounds and a pair of 2 pounds. And you can spend money on heavier clubs. I honestly don't think you need more than a 2 pound, and most people probably only need a 1 pound. That's okay. It sounds like it's a very tiny weight. It's not, because the weight is concentrated out here. You have a very long lever. That 2 pounds all of a sudden becomes very heavy. So a little bit of weight can go a long way, but sometimes we want to work our throwing mechanics. Okay, so basic throwing option is, if I'm going to throw a ball, I'm going to create the big L, and then I'm going to chuck it. Okay? That is the typical throwing pattern. Show you the other way. Okay? My point, got my big L, and then boom. When it comes to the club, you can use the club to help generate a similar pattern. So what we want to look for is kind of creating the same pattern we had, except with a little bit of a variation. So I'm going to bring it behind me and then come over and across. Bring it behind me, over and across. Bring it behind me, over and across. Okay? Now, what's going on there? There's a lot of pieces. So I'm going to show you from the front. If I'm going to throw a ball to you, I would point at you, get my ball, step, and throw. With the club, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to step to you. The club's going to come up. It's going to go behind my back, just like the other pattern. And then I'm going to bring that around and then we'll release. But I'm not throwing the club, obviously. I am going to go ahead, though, and try and redirect it and let the momentum carry the arm. And because I've got that momentum, it's going to come up, and then I'm going to let the club fall down, and I'm going to wind up, do it again. Up, back and front, behind. Up, back and front, behind. Up, front, behind. Up, front, behind. And so I'm just going to work that pattern again and again. And you'll notice I'm getting my hips involved. I'm letting all of that just kind of move through there. And this helps to build up a lot of the rotational mechanics you would need for throwing. Okay? Now this is not necessarily one that I would practice going the reverse, though you could for the sake of motor competency. So instead of up and around, I might do, can't even do it wrong now. I would do around, bring it here, and then out. And around, bring it here. That's a tricky one. I need to work on that one. I don't practice it because it's not a pattern that I'm ever going to do. I'm not really going to throw a ball behind me that way. But I might be more likely to throw a ball forward, so that's why I practice that pattern. Okay? So that's your throwing pattern. Now, let's show you again from the side. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it behind me, step, throw, and around. Behind me, down, and around. Okay? Bring it up, across, behind. And then that pattern is basically your throwing mechanics. So that's the throwing pattern. Now, let's get into just some more fun patterns. One of my favorite expressions about Indian clubs is that Indian clubs are essentially yo-yos for strongmen. So if you think of old-timey strongmen, they actually use Indian clubs quite a bit in their training for the sake of shoulder health and shoulder integrity. But for us, because we're not necessarily looking at crazy old-timey strength, though you may be, what we're interested in is that shoulder functionality. So in terms of overall patterns, we have a few options that we haven't actually explored yet. So we have our main pattern. We have our throwing pattern. And then we can actually come around the head and down. Around the head and down. Okay, one more time and then I'll break it down for you. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually letting the weight of the club fall back down. That's where the inertia is coming from. I'm using just enough to get it up and then it falls down on its own. When it's coming back around though, I'm going to actually bring my elbow up and redirect the club behind my head and then over my shoulder. Then it's going to come back up. It's going to fall down. I'm going to bring it around my head and over my shoulder. Let it come back up. It's going to come around my head, over my shoulder. So then when I put that together, that's how I create that momentum. And then you can start to add a little bit of hip motion to it. Let your body just kind of feel the fluid of the momentum. Yeah, definitely a fun pattern to explore. And then you can start to get a little bit more wild with some behind the back or some sort of spin. Okay, now a spin pattern, I might have my normal pattern come out and then around. Oh, and then I throw in a behind the back. Okay, so let's break that down again. I have my normal pattern, around the shoulder, cast it out, and let it fall. Around the shoulder, cast it out, spin it, let it fall. So when I create that spin, because I've got a loose grip, only that ring finger is holding the club, I'm just going to let that kind of fall, and it stays in the palm. I kind of do a little bit of a finger switch from my ring finger to my middle finger at that point, and then I let it readjust back to my ring, come up, spin. So I'm kind of just holding on to that ball of the club in my palm while it spins. I can also go behind the arm. Again, this is why we want to have that balance of tension and relaxation in everything that we do, so that we're not creating so much tension that we can't actually articulate a muscle when we want to. So when I put that in sequence, same pattern with a little bit of flair. Okay, and then you saw a little bit of a glimpse of the behind the back. Let's break that down for you too. So I can go behind my back and around, behind my back and around, behind my back and around. Here's what's happening there. When I come around, I'm going down, I'm letting that come up, and then passing it back around like our normal pattern. So it's making a pit stop, the momentum is getting the club up to fall and come back around. Okay? So I did that a little bit sloppy, but I wasn't in enough momentum to be able to make that work. So I come up and around. Come up and around. Come up and around. I definitely recommend you work on these up here before you work on these here, because these will require you to get used to the idea of changing your grip around the ball of the handle. Okay? So, to show you from the front. Okay? And then you can combine them. Okay? You can start to build flows off of these. So that might look like I come down and around and over the shoulder and do a flip and do another flip and then down and around and over the shoulder and then do it behind the front and then the front and then boom. So you can start to change that up every time, and then I can come around and I can do this way. And now that changes the direction I am going in. And then I can switch that back. And now I'm back to this pattern here. So that brings us to transitions. So you notice I had one pattern going one way, switched it to the other. So I have multiple ways I can kind of pair these together. I have my normal pattern for sake of being able to show and explain this. And then if I want to go the other way, I could just let it fall. And now it's going the other way. Easy peasy. If I want to go the other way again, same idea. I just let it come up, fall back down. Let it come up, fall back down. Let it come up, fall back down. And then whichever way I want to continue that momentum through will determine which direction I want to go. Okay? Then that becomes how I start to feel that weight shift and then go the other way. When it comes to being able to go from here to here and then flip it, well, now that's going to be a different pattern than I had before. So when you have those abrupt changes, you start to be able to sense, okay, it's going to float. I'm going to add a little flourish. And then you can start to make those transitions appear a little bit better. They can be cleaner, they can be smoother, they can be more aesthetic, and they're a heck of a lot more fun. Okay? So then, when I put this together, and I'm going this way, okay? So in this case, I'm going clockwise, going down the clock for your view. And if I want to change, I'm going to create a transition. I can go here, and now I'm going counterclockwise. You see how that's counterclockwise now. I can go the other way. Boom. And now we're back to clockwise. We float it. Counterclockwise. Counterclockwise. Okay? Get to here, float it, flourish it, and we're back to clockwise. Still clockwise. That was just a little bit of a flourish. Already keeping that same pattern. So we're clockwise. We're counterclockwise. And then we're clockwise. And then we're going to do the behind the head as our transition. And then we're counterclockwise. You see that? So that behind the head became our transition. Now I can't do behind the head here, because I'm not going the right way for it to end up that way. So I need to transition, 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 transition. So I could flourish. Now I'm back to this pattern. Or behind the head, and now I'm back to counterclockwise. Okay? And then I flourish, and now I am clockwise. So counterclockwise is coming. Behind, boom, all the way up. And then because I'm going counterclockwise, I would go up to 12 o'clock if I wanted to, but I'm going to let it fall, flourish it, and come back this way. So that point where I let it fall is where I change the direction. So again, I'll show you. I'm just going clockwise. I'm going to behind the head. Now I'm going counterclockwise. Okay? And if I kept it going counterclockwise, it would go back this way. But when it gets here, I'm going to let it fall. And now we're back to clockwise. Pretty cool, right? And that is your basic Indian club transition. Now, one of the other movements that I think is super important that people don't spend enough time on is your pegboard. Okay, pegboard is a natural component of any sort of rotational power. Whether I'm swinging a bat, whether I'm swinging a club, whether I am swinging a racket, whether I'm throwing a nice bucket uppercut, whatever it might be, your ability to generate power through the hips from the ground is paramount athleticism. Every sport needs it to some degree. If it doesn't need it, you need a new sport. No, I'm kidding. So what we're actually looking for is the ability to start linking that into what you're doing. So let's go back to our normal pattern for a second, and I'm going to just kind of create that pegboard motion. Okay, so this is not our normal throwing pattern we had before. This is our pattern 1 that we've been working on this whole time. But I'm just getting that pegboard to open up, and then boom, dropping that in to help with creating that lag. So as I do that, the hips will go this way, the spine will lag behind, and then that lag, that torque, that tension, that lag, that torque, that tension is what carries the club through. Okay? And I can go the other way. So I'm trying to beat my spine around, meaning my hips, I want to go that way first before my spine gets there. That way, I have a lot of torque loaded up. The more I can experience loading and holding that torque is where I can get used to the idea of creating more power, more speed, more overall force generation in a rotational capacity. So including your pegboard into that is super duper important. You can even take this a step further. You're like, Brian, how much more could there be? This is why I love club bells. So now I'm going to get into an anterior 45 lunge. So my anterior 45 lunge now, I'm not in a lateral motion. I'm now here. I can start adding some of these patterns and pegboard into a diagonal template. And then I can start changing my lunge. And that will build a different level of coordination. Because now I have to pay attention to where my legs are at any given moment. Your ability to know where your feet are, know where your legs are, know how to generate power in any position is key athleticism. So this 1 to 2 pound weight with all of that versatility can start to give you a huge amount of overall coordination and athletic capacity that most people never experience. Because to most people, this is the extent of what this club can do. And that's fine, and that is good for your shoulders. But it's definitely a limitation of what your body is capable of. And as such, we want to give you the full capacity of athleticism. So hopefully that was entertaining and fun, and you enjoyed that and learned a lot. Now go forth and apply it. Take this information, use it, get better functionality, get better movement, and overall get a healthier brain. I'll see you soon.